Origin of Australian English language. And again, we are discussing that English language is one, but its pronunciation pattern is different from American English, British English, and Australian English. Now we will be discussing the origin of Australian English. What is the origin of Australian English? In that case, first of all, we will see that towards the end of the 18th century, British world exploration established the English language in Southern Hemisphere. And the number of speakers, not very large in comparison to Northern Hemisphere, but the varieties of English emerged are distinctive. The southern part of this world, we see the number of English speaking speakers are more in the northern part of this world map. However, the number of English speaker in the southern part of this world is less in comparison to the northern part of this world. But we see the distinctive pronunciation pattern of Australian English language. We will see that. That is, these are the northern part, that means America in this area, and in the southern part of this map, that is Australia and New Zealand. Today we will be discussing the origin of Australian English. And a man, his name is Captain James Cook. He is a British explorer, navigator, and cartographer, and captain in the British Naval Royal Navy. Cook reached the southern coast of New South Wales in 1770 and sailed north, charting Australia's eastern coastline and claiming the land of Great Britain on 22nd August 1770. So this man, James Cook, is a famous name regarding the Australia as the British colony. He is a navigator. He went to Australia in 1770 and made Australia a British colony. This man, in 20 years, Britain established its first penal colony at Sydney. Penal colony means prison, prisoner, prison cell, Bondi Shibir. And why they did so? Because in Britain, all the prisoners or jail were overcrowded. To transport the jail prisoner from Britain to somewhere else, a place was necessary. And after 20 years of making Australia the British colony, the British government established Sydney, the capital of Australia, as the penal colony of Britain. About 130,000 prisoners transported in 50 years. That means 130,000 prisoners who were in British jail, they were transported from Britain and there to Australia, Sydney. And apart from that, free settlers began to enter, but they didn't achieve substantial number until the mid-19th century. So after, within the 50 years, that means 1770, then 1790, first British penal colony in Australia. Within 50 years, 130,000 prisoners were shifted from Britain to Australia. However, apart from the prisoners, some other free settlers, they are from Britain, they also went Australia, but they are less in number. But their number increased up to the mid-19th century. From then on, immigration rapidly increased. So after the mid-19th century, the immigration in Australia that was increased. By 1850, the population of Australia was about 4 lakhs. And by 1900, nearly 4 million. And in 2002, it was nearly 19 million. So if we speak about the origin of Australian English, we have to take it consideration that many prisoners were shifted from Britain to Australia. And there were many in numbers up to the 18th century. But after mid-19th century, they were the free settlers. They are not the prisoners. Actually, the prisoners, they are the convict. They are the criminals. Actually, they don't use the standard form of English. However, the other people who were the free settlers, they went to Australia later on after the second mid, in the second half of 19th century, they are the free settlers. And from the time forward, we see the number of Australian immigration, the number of immigration in Australia was increased rapidly. And up to 2002, the population of Australia were 19 million. The British Isles, main source of settlers, thus the main influence of the language. So the British English is the main influence of Australian English pronunciation pattern and everything. And many convicts from London, Ireland. So Cockney accent of Cockney, that means that not informal usage of a language, not the standard form or regional form of a language. That is the pattern of Australian English, because many of them who went from London and Ireland to Australia, they use not standard English, they use the regional English that is called Brock of Irish English, stressed in the speech pattern heard in Australia today. So in Australia, we do not see the standard form of English language. However, they are the pronunciation pattern of many regional English languages, regional England or Britain's English languages. And this is the pattern of pronunciation of Australian English. The language contains many expressions originated in Australia from Aboriginal languages as well. And recently, the influence of American English, a growing number of immigrants group noticeable in Australia. Thus, Australia has a very mixed linguistics character. So the people who are now living in Australia, they are not only the British people, some free settlers, they from America also went to Australia. So we see the mixed linguistics or pronunciation pattern of Australian English. And one noticeable thing, that is the Irish Rebellion in 1798. An uprising against British rule in Ireland. We know that Ireland, Wales, Scotland, they are under the UK. But the people of Ireland, they revolted against the British government, and that was happened in 1798. Our French army, supported by the rebels and defeated by the British and the loyalist forces, the Irish Revolution or revolutionary group were supported by French rebels, but they were defeated by the British government. And why they revolt against the British government? They actually, the Irish rebellious group, they revolted against the British government, especially for the religious discrimination. And also some religious group that is called Presbyterian and the Catholics were denied many of their rights in UK. And for this reason, the Irish rebellious group revolted against the British government. However, Jamila Rahman, I see you have raised your hands. Do you have any question?
Sorry, sir. He's unwillingly happened.
Okay, no problem. So, uh, hand, I see the your raising hand. Okay. So anyway, so this is the situation. That is, there was a rebellion in Ireland against the British government, and uh, for this reason, we see in Australian English that is the mixture of linguistics pattern. The people who were shifted from Britain to Australia, most of them are prisoners. And apart from that, some free settlers from America and also from England, especially many Irish rebellions group, they left Ireland and went to Australia. So we see in Australian English, there is a mixed pronunciation pattern in Australian English. And another country we see, that is the New Zealand. Nearby Australia, we see another country, that is the New Zealand. In New Zealand, English language started later and moved more slowly. Though New Zealand and Australia are the neighboring countries, but in case of New Zealand, we see the development of English language in New Zealand is more slowly. And the people of New Zealand, especially, they use an Aboriginal language, and this language is called Maori. The people of New Zealand, they use the regional language, that is the Maori. Captain Cook charted the islands of New Zealand in 1769 to 70. The same person who went to New Zealand, he also went to Australia. He also went to New Zealand in 1769 to 70. And other European whalers and traders settled there in 1790 decades. So in New Zealand, Captain Cook went there in 1769 to 70, and after 20 years of Captain Cook's visit in New Zealand, some whalers and the traders went to New Zealand as well. And also some Christian missionary work among the Maori from 1814. They also went to New Zealand. However, the official colony established in 1840 in New Zealand. And by the Treaty of Waitangi between Maori chiefs and the British Crown, that was established in 1840. Then increase in European immigration around 2000 in 1840 to 25,000 by 1850, and to 750,000 by 1900. And the total population in 2002 were over 3.8 million. So if we compare Australia and New Zealand, British navigator Captain Cook went to New Zealand in 1769. And after 20 years, some other European whalers and traders went to New Zealand. However, New Zealand became the British colony in 1814, and it became the official colony for the basis of a treatment that was happened in the Treaty of Waitangi, that was in 1840. And after that, the immigration in Australia and New Zealand increased, and by 2002, the population of New Zealand became to 3.8 million. And that is the Treaty of Waitangi. These are the Maori chiefs, the Aboriginal people of New Zealand, and this person, these are the British. So there was a treaty signed between the people of New Zealand and the British government, and that was happened in 1840. And by the representative of the British Crown and Maori chiefs from the North Island of New Zealand. 3 strands of New Zealand's social history had a special linguistic consequence. So in case of New Zealand, we see 3 historical past of New Zealand English. One, like Australia, a stronger sense of the historical relationship with Britain, because Captain Cook is the first man who went to Australia, and also he went to New Zealand, and a greater sympathy for British values and institution for the American people. So many New Zealand people speak with an accent which displays clear British influence. So in New Zealand English, we see that the British influence is much, and that is the first category of New Zealand English. And you see the map. This is the New Zealand over here, and this is Australia. Secondly, a growing sense of national identity, an emphasis on the difference between New Zealand and Australia. Another thing, the English language used in New Zealand is not as similar as Australian English. They want to make a difference for the cause of their national identity, to make a difference between New Zealand English and Australian English. Differences in the accent of the two countries motivated the use of distinctive New Zealand vocabulary and accent. And thirdly, a fresh concern of the rights and needs of the Maori people. Maori is the Aboriginal language of New Zealand. Now, 10% of the population speak Maori. So resulted in an increased use of Maori words in New Zealand English. So one pattern we think that is there is a similarity between British English and New Zealand English for the cause of many British people went to New Zealand. And also there is a difference between New Zealand English and Australian English. And also there was a growing concern of nationality. Many people, that means 10% of New Zealand people use their regional language, and that language is called Maori language. And this is the history of the origin of New Zealand English. So thank you very much. And